Hey, yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is Smart TCG, and today I'm going to be updating some top tier decks from pre-rotation with the post-rotation format in mind. Post-rotation is quickly approaching, and cards from the F block are going to be rotating out of the standard format, so plenty of top tier decks are going to be changing quite a bit with the rotation. So today I'm going to be going over how exactly I would build them moving forward. So with that being said, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and let's hop right into it. Alrighty, so first off here, we have Raging Bolt EX. Raging Bolt was one of the top decks in the pre-rotation format, and I still think it remains one of the top decks heading into the post-rotation format. However, we do lose some important cards. Cards like Radiant Greninja and Pokestop are going to be rotating out of the standard format. These cards were absolutely critical for this deck, and that means we're going to have to change quite a few things about this deck with losing some really important turbo cards that this deck was able to use. So with those important cards leaving Raging Bolt, here are some important notes to remember when playing the deck in the post-rotation format. In my opinion, I would go first now instead of second. The reason is that since you don't have cards like Pokestop and Radiant Greninja, your chance of hitting a turn 1 Bellowing Thunder knockout goes down substantially. So if you're not going to be able to consistently hit that turn 1 Bellowing Thunder, then in my opinion, going first and playing a little bit more conservatively is a lot better, as you don't really need to push for turn 1 knockouts in this format. This format slows down quite a bit. There's a lot of heavy setup based decks that are going to be showing up. So in my opinion, you don't really need to push for that turn 1 knockout anymore. Alrighty, so hopping into it here, this is going to be the Raging Bolt list that I personally have been liking. We got 4 Teomas Ogerpon just for that consistency, and then we also have the Noctowl engine in this deck. This is going to be a Raging Bolt list that likes to go first, which means you can use that Fan Rotom, which we play 2 of, to get multiple Hoothoots and Noctowl pieces to be able to set up consistent attacks with that Raging Bolt EX. We got 3 Raging Bolt EX here, 1 Squawkabilly, 1 Latias, 1 Pheasantipity, 1 of the Slitherwing with that Burning Turbulence attack, which deals with Pikachu EX, as it does burn Pikachu going through Pikachu's ability, making it so that you have an option to one-shot through that card, which has been seeing quite a bit of play in that Ogerpon box deck. Also got another Ogerpon here. We have the Cornerstone Mask. Cornerstone Mask is really important right now as it deals with those Farigarath wall decks that have been seeing quite a bit of success over in Japan. So having Cornerstone makes a lot of sense in this deck to deal with that matchup. Turns a pretty bad matchup into one of your better ones. We have 4 Professor Sadas, 1 Crispin, 1 Iono, and 1 Boss's Orders to round out the supporter count. We got 4 Nest Ball, 4 Ultra Ball as well. Raging Bolt in the past didn't actually used to play, this many Ultra Ball. However, since you do have the Noctowl engine now in the deck, 4 Ultra Ball makes a lot more sense, so you can find those Noctowls, but also on top of it, more consistency could really never hurt with this deck. 3 Earthen Vessel, as well as 3 Energy Retrieval. Now, Raging Bolt lists in the past used to play 4 Energy Retrieval, but I think you can get away with 3 now, just because cards, like Pokestop and also Radiant Greninja don't exist anymore. So you have a lot more of control over what energies, hit the discard pile. So 3 Energy Retrieval has felt totally fine. 2 Night Stretcher, 1 Powpad, 1 Prime Catcher, and then 2 Area Zero and 1 Jamming Tower. Jamming Tower is pretty good against Gardevoir, being able to turn off things like their TM Evolution, but also good to turn off things like Bravery Charm, and I think that the Turbo Driftloon variant of Gardevoir will see some play, so having it there, can be good, just being able to get it down on the first turn, if you draw into it, can be nice, just seems like a overall good card to have. And then we have 6 Grass Energy, 3 Light Energy, and 3 Fighting Energy to round out the list. I think this deck actually gets arguably better in the post-rotation format, just because I feel like its matchup spread gets significantly stronger. In the pre-rotation format, there were a lot of decks that did pretty well against it. For example, things like Gardevoir, really excelled against it. You also had decks, like Goldengo as well. So the matchup spread was actually relatively rough, for this deck, but I think that it gets significantly better in the post-rotation format. Alrighty, next up here, we have Dragapult EX. Now, Dragapult EX is losing a lot of important cards. We have cards like Lumineon V and Rotom V. Those are going to be the 2 main Pokemon that this deck is losing. That hurts. Rotom V was very important on the first turn of the game if you were going first. Just great for, that consistency to be able to get it out on that first turn, just to be able to set up your board state. Lumineon as well was, oftentimes great paired up with that Force Seal Stone as well. Losing Stone really, really hurts this deck, along with Lance. Thankfully, Lance, you kind of have a replacement in cards, like Jock, but that card is obviously not as good as Lance, so, losing that as well is quite rough. So yeah, Pult still going to be a good deck, but losing some really important cards. Alrighty, so here are kind of some notes about Dragapult EX. The deck is less consistent than it used to be. That seems like a pretty obvious thing when you lose, all of those important cards. So you got to try and put in as many other consistency cards as you possibly can to make up for those losses. And you need to aggressively use the Budew at the beginning of the game to stabilize your board state. As your deck just isn't necessarily able to set up as well as you used to be, you really need to try and buy some time with cards, like the Budew to be able to get your Dracoloak set up. Alrighty, here is going to be the list that I have built. We got ourselves 4-4-3 Dragapult, pretty thick count of Dragapult. Some lists in the past have played 4-4-2, but I like the 4-4-3 engine, just heavy count, very consistent. We got 3 of the Duskull, 1 Dusclops, 2 of the Dusknoir. Also got 2 Budew now, so in the past, a lot of these Dragapult Dusknoir lists were only playing 1 of the Budew, but Budew becomes even more important in this format, so having 2 is pretty good. Also got 1 Pheasantipede, 1 Hawlucha as well. Hawlucha pretty good in the mirror match, just, comes up in a lot of situations, opens up, multi-prize card scenarios. For the supporters, we got 4 Arven, 3 Iono, 1 Jock, 1 of the brand new Brock's card as well. Brock's allowing you to search for Pokemon that are either basic or evolution, but you can only get 1 of them. So that's why we do still play 1 of those Jocks, as Jock can get us 2 evolutions. So I've been kind of testing out the 1-1 split, but I might honestly go to the second Jock, as Brock's doesn't necessarily come up as much as I would like, but when it does, it can feel really, really good. Also got 1 Boss's Orders, 1 Crispin as well, and then for the item cards, we have 4 Buddy Buddy Puffin, 3 Ultra Ball, 2 Counter Catcher, 2 Nest Ball, 2 Rare Candy, 1 Earthen Vessel, 1 Super Rod, 1 Night Stretcher for the recovery, and then for the switch cards, we have 1 switch and 1 of the rescue board. And then for tools, we got multiple. We got the Sparkling Crystal, A-Spec. Some lists have been playing the Unfair Stamp. I have considered it, but Sparkling Crystal is really, really good, just to be able to get that consistent Dragapult up as quickly as you possibly can. 1 EXP share as well. This is a card that I've been testing. This card gets significantly better in a format where there is no Lost Vacuum, as Lost Vacuum is rotating out of the standard format. So this card has felt a little bit better in this deck. And then for the final tool, we have that Defiance Band. I've really enjoyed having the Defiance Band in Dragapult variants, has felt quite good. And then we have 1 Artisan to round out the trainer cards. And then for energies, pretty standard. We got 3 Fire Energy and 3 Psychic Energy. So this deck is still pretty good. I don't think it's necessarily a tier 1 deck anymore, but I still think it's going to be about tier 1.5 to tier 2. The big problem with this deck is the stall matchups aren't very great. Things like the Melodic just kind of, wall you out. And if you want to tech for the Melodic matchup, you have to play a bunch of, different cards that, kind of hurt the consistency of the deck. Like you have to put in a Cornerstone, a Fire Energy. Like you could potentially do that, but then your deck becomes even more inconsistent. So, that is kind of the reason as to why I don't have any of those, techs in the deck. But, if you do want a better wall matchup and you expect to hit multiple of them, then, potentially playing, that Cornerstone paired up with a Fight Energy isn't necessarily the worst thing to do in the world. Alrighty, hop into it here. We have Charizard. Charizard, like Dragapult EX, is losing some very important cards. For example, cards like Luminion, Forest Stone, and Rotom V. So this deck is going to have to be built quite different than it used to be. Alrighty, hopping into it here, we have some important notes about Charizard. In my opinion, I would build Charizard around the Terra engine with Fan, Rotom, and Noctowl. The loss of Luminion V, Forest Stone, and Rotom V makes the deck not stable without a different engine. I was trying out without the Noctowl in this deck, and it just was an absolute mess. It wasn't setting up, and I've decided that the Noctowl engine actually helps out the deck quite a bit. So here's a list that I've been liking. Alrighty, so here is a variant of Charizard Noctowl that I think has some potential. This deck has been doing well over in Japan, and I think the deck is relatively decent. We have a 4-4 Noctowl line for that consistency, 3 Charmander, 2 Charizard as well. Got ourselves a 2-1-1 Dusknoir line, 2 Terrapagos. Terrapagos is that Terra that we're going to be trying to get down at the beginning of the game to allow us to use that Noctowl engine. Also makes a good attacker as well. Being able to use that Unified Beatdown for 240 damage can be quite good at the beginning of the game before you head into attacking with Charizards. I also got 2 Fan Rotom as well. Fan Rotom can actually attack in this deck, as you do have Jet Energy and Colress, so you can definitely catch some people off guard with a turn 1 Fan Rotom attack, which, can be kind of cool. Got 1 Pheasantipede as well for that consistency. For the supporter count, we got 2 Iono, 2 Boss's Orders, 1 Professor's Research, 1 Professor Turo, 1 Briar, 1 of the Jock, and then 1 Colress's Tenacity. For the item cards, we got 4 Nest Ball, 4 Buddy Puffin, and 3 Ultra Ball. Heavy on the consistency cards there. Also got 4 Rare Candy, one Night Stretcher, and one Terror Orb. Terror Orb has felt pretty good in this deck as it does get the Charizard or the Trapagos, so can be quite good at the beginning of the game. Also got 2 Super Rod as well as 1 Counter Catcher, and then for the aspect of choice, we have 1 Maximum Belt, and then for the stadiums, we play 2 Area Zero. Makes a lot of sense as we are playing a Terra deck. Might as well play the Area Zero, allowing us to build up our bench. Also opens up one-shot scenarios with that Terrapagos. And then for the energies, we got 5 Fire Energies and the 1 Jet Energy. This deck has felt really, really good. It definitely has a pretty decent matchup against quite a few things. However, your Dragapult matchup is pretty rough, so if Dragapult still exists as a top contender, then you can definitely run into some problems against that matchup. But I do think Charizard survives in the post-rotation. You just kind of have to build it like this now. Next up here, we have Gholdengo. Now, Gholdengo is a deck that has been performing exceptionally well in the pre-rotation format. However, it is going to be losing some pretty important cards. Pokestop and Radiant Greninja are the 2 main cards, both very important for this deck to see success. So we're going to have to build this deck quite differently moving forward. Alrighty, here are some important Gholdengo notes. Use Dragapult and Gholdengo to cover both decks' weaknesses, being Cornerstone and the Melodic. Now, in my opinion, I would pair both Gholdengo EX and also Dragapult together because you play multiple different types of energies, so playing the Dragapult engine is actually relatively easy to do. And the problem with straight Gholdengo is straight Gholdengo loses to Cornerstones, and the problem with Dragapult is Dragapult really, really struggles to the, Melodic decks. So both decks kind of on their own really struggle to stall. However, if you play them both together, you cover your weaknesses quite nicely. And you also have access to the Dracloak engine, which makes up for the loss of Radiant Greninja, and also Pokestop a little bit. Yes, it's not necessarily the same, but, having that, engine of Dracloaks makes things a little bit better. Alrighty, here is the list of hybrid Gholdengo that I think has a lot of potential. We have the 4/4 Gholdengo line, a 2/2/2 line of Dragapult as well. This line has felt totally fine. If you want to go up in the Dragapult line, you could go up to 3/3/2, but I felt like the 2/2/2 line has been totally okay because Gholdengo still is your main attacker, but having access to that Dracloak's Recon Directive is really nice. Also have 1 Pheasantipede, 1 Munkidori as well. Munkidori is still a great addition in this deck. However, we don't play 2 Dark Energy anymore because Dragapult is less of a matchup that you need to worry about now, so that is pretty important. We do play instead 2 Fire Energies because you can attack with Dragapult. For the supporters here, we got 4 Arven, 2 Iono, 2 Crispin. Crispin, great to power up our Dragapults in 1 turn, and then 1 Boss's Orders as well. For the Atom cards, we got 4 Buddy Buddy Puffin, 4 Superior Energy Retrieval, 2 Nest Ball, 2 Ultra Ball, 1 Energy Search Pro. The optimal aspect, in my opinion, in this deck, just being able to open up easy 1-hit KOs with Gholdengo at the beginning of the game is really important. So the Energy Search Pro has felt like that best aspec by far. We got 1 Earthen Vessel, 1 Night Stretcher, and then for the other recovery card, we got 1 Super Rod, 2 Super Rod. Feels pretty good in this deck as you have a lot of, moving pieces. Also, just being able to put energies back in the deck can be kind of nice. Got 1 Counter Catcher, 1 Switch, 2 Pokegear, as well as the 2 TM Evo. Being able to get an early game TM Evo off is really, really powerful. Being able to get into a Dracoloak and also a Gholdengo is really good. Got ourselves 1 Artisan as well for the stadium. You could potentially go up to 2 Artisan, but 1 has felt totally fine. You honestly don't really even need a stadium that much in this deck, but, just kind of having an extra consistency card, doesn't really hurt. Then for the energies, we got 3 Metal, 2 Fire, 2 Psychic, 1 Dark, 1 Grass, 1 Water, 1 Lightning, and 1 Fighting. I think this deck is great. I think this deck has a lot of potential. It has been doing well over in Japanese tournaments, and I think it's going to continue to see success. Personally, I think that the hybrid variant of this deck is better than either of these decks played like on their own. I think that, yes, both of the, kind of singular like variants of the deck, for example, just, straight Gholdengo and just, straight Pult is like fine. They're okay. But they have multiple different weaknesses, which actually both of these cards, combined actually cover quite nicely. So yeah, I think this deck is good. I think it's, definitely going to be one of the, contenders. I think it's really, really powerful. And yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's a good deck. Alrighty, hopping into the next deck, we got Gardevoir EX. Gardevoir EX is losing 2 very important cards. Mostly Kirlia, though. Losing Kirlia is really important. Losing Greninja is kind of unfortunate, but the deck oftentimes didn't even play Greninja, but it was important in some builds. But the big thing that we're losing is Kirlia with that refinement, allowing you to discard a card from your hand and draw 2 cards, kind of the backbone of this deck. So this deck is going to have to be built completely differently if you want it to function. But if you are able to build it correctly, I still think this deck has a lot of potential because Gardevoir EX with that Psychic Embrace is just such a powerful, powerful Pokemon. So let's hop into some important notes about the deck. Alrighty, next up here, we got some important Gardevoir EX notes. I personally would focus on a more aggressive build with cards like Professor's Research and Rare Candy. Arven, in my opinion, is a significantly weaker engine when not paired up with a stable draw engine. For example, using Arven at the very beginning of the game to be able to search out 1 item card and also 1 tool card just isn't necessarily very powerful when you don't have multiple refinement Kirlias on the board. So there's going to be so many situations where you need maybe a 2, 3, sometimes even 4 card combo, and Arven just isn't necessarily strong enough to get you there. So personally, I'm a big fan of Professor's Research and Rare Candy right now. One other thing too is Gardevoir is not the main attacker anymore, as it's significantly harder to set up Gardevoirs in this format. In my opinion, you don't actually really want to be attacking with this all the time. Yes, in some spots it's okay to attack with it, but you really want to focus on your other powerful attackers like cards like Screamtail, Driftbloom, and more. Let's hop into a list that I've been enjoying. Here's a Gardevoir deck list that I think has a lot of potential moving forward. We have the 3-1-2 Gardevoir line. Now, we don't play a 4-1-2 or 4-2-2 line anymore, just simply because we're not going to be attacking with Gardevoir EX as much. So yes, 3 routes might seem a little bit weird, but in this format, it's actually totally okay because Gardevoir EX is not your main attacker. We still, however, have 2 Monkey Dory. 2 Monkey Dory is really, really nice to have. You know, still being able to use that Adrenabrain is still great. Got 1 Driftbloom, 1 Screamtail, 1 of that Lily's Clefairy. Lily's Clefairy is absolutely amazing, paired up with Mew EX, as you can power up a Mew EX in 1 turn with that Psychic Embrace, and then copy the opponent's active Dragapult's Phantom Dive for 400 damage, as Lily's Clefairy makes Dragapult weak to Psychic, and you can knock out a Duskull, taking half of your prize cards, which is really, really cool. So Lily's Clefairy definitely seems quite good in this deck. Also makes Raging Bolt weak to Psychic as well, which means that you can attack with a Driftbloom just for 2 energies for a 1-hit KO, which is actually pretty good. So yeah, there's, you know, multiple different reasons as to why the Lily's Clefairy makes a lot of sense in this deck. And then we also have Pheasantipede as well, great for consistency, and then 1 Badoo, you know, just to kind of slow down the pace of the game at the very beginning, which can be pretty nice. For the supporters here, we got 4 Professor's Research, 4 Iono, 1 Professor Turo, and 1 Boss's Orders. For the item cards, we got 4 Buddy Puffin, 3 Night Stretcher. Heavier kind of Night Stretcher is pretty good in this deck just because we're going to be using cards like Professor's Research, getting rid of quite a lot of resources at times, so having heavy Night Stretcher has felt pretty good. We got 2 Ultra Ball, 4 Rare Candy, 2 Nest Ball, 2 Counter Catcher, 1 Brilliant Blender. That's going to be the A spec of choice. Yes, you don't have necessarily an easy way to search it out, but, you know, being able to find the Brilliant Blender pretty much at any point has felt pretty good. You know, just being able to thin lots of energies out of the deck and just, you know, extra, you know, item cards that you might not need. For example, towards the end of the game, you're probably not going to need multiple Buddy Puffins. So if you are able to thin some of those extra, you know, cards out, it can be quite nice just to, you know, kind of get rid of the fluff in the deck. We got 3 Earthen Vessel as well. Going to be trying to get energies in the discard pile as quickly as possible, so playing a heavy count has felt good. 3 Bravery Charm, 1 of the Artisan, and then 1 Town Store, just to be able to pull out that Bravery Charm when you need it. Also provides a Stadium bump as well. I personally have liked the option of the Town Store because there will be some situations where you have, let's say, a Professor's Research in hand, and having Professor's Research at the beginning of the game and Town Store is better than having a Bravery Charm because you can put the Town Store into play, whereas, you know, putting that Bravery Charm in play might not necessarily have, you know, a whole lot of use, and then you can play the research, draw, and then you can use the Town Store. So I like that little bit of flexibility a little bit more, and also sometimes Town Store will stick in play for multiple turns, meaning you can pull those Bravery Charms when you need them. Then we also got 8 of the Psychic Energy and 2 Dark. You don't really need 3 Dark anymore, as this deck is not going to be attacking with Gardevoir EX all the time. It's more of a turbo build of the deck, so 2 Dark Energy has felt fine. Overall, I think Gardevoir has a lot of potential. The deck can be a little bit clunky at times, but when you get it going, its matchup spread is actually quite good. I think this deck is going to be pretty solid. Yes, you know, losing the Refinement Kirlia is really, really bad, but we've seen in the past, you know, Gardevoir has lost really important cards. For example, in the previous rotation in 2024, we lost Shining Arcana Gardevoir. And there were quite a few people that were like, wow, losing the Shining Arcana Gardevoir means Gardevoir is not going to be a great deck anymore. And it still dominated. So yes, losing the Refinement Curly is obviously worse than losing the Shining Arcana Gardevoir, but I still think this deck is going to survive and has a lot of potential moving forward. Next up, we have Archaladon. This is going to be another deck that has been seeing quite a bit of success in Japan, but has lost some pretty important cards. We have cards like Radiant Greninja and Origin Form Dialga V-Star that have rotated out of the standard format. Alrighty, hopping into some notes about Archaladon. To be honest, not much has changed. Despite losing cards like Radiant Greninja and the Dialga V-Star wasn't even played in all of the Archaladon builds, so it's mainly the loss of Radiant Greninja that this deck kind of feels. And, to be honest, you can kind of make up for it. You can play a heavy draw supporter engine or a Pokemon with a draw ability. For example, things, like the Dunsparce. You could also even play Revroom as well to compensate for lost consistency. Here's going to be a build of Archaladon that I think has a lot of potential. If you want to add the Dunsparce engine, all you have to do is cut the double line and also the Zacian, and you can add in 3 Dunsparce, and then 1 of the Dunsparce EX. So pretty easy to make those changes. So hopping into it here, we got 4 Duraludon for Archaladon just for that consistency. Then we got the 3/3 double line. Also have the Zacian EX here. This is not going to be the Hops one. The main reason why this one has a lot of potential is that you can one-shot a Cornerstone in 1 turn. So the problem with the other Zacian is that you need 4 energy on it. So that's still not really that big of a deal. But this one only requires 3 to deal 210. So it's a little bit easier to power up. And 210 is all you need to hit to one-shot the Cornerstone. Also got 1 Relicanth, 1 Pheasantipede, and 1 Squawkabilly to round out the Pokemon. 4 supporters, max consistency here, 4 Research, 4 Iono, and then 2 Boss's Orders and 2 Professor Turo. With the double engine, you don't need as many Boss's Orders, as double has effectively Boss's Orders as an ability, which is really good. Got 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Nest Ball, 4 Night Stretcher, just heavy consistency there. Pretty linear deck, to be honest. We got 2 Pokegear, 3 Earthen Vessel, and then 1 Palpat to get back those supporters. Still, quite nice to be able to put researchers back in the deck. So, when your opponent uses a hand disruption card, finding research feels really, really nice. So, feels great towards the end of the game just to, put a lot of important cards that you would like to draw into back into the deck, like things like Professor's Research, even, Boss's Orders as well. We got 1 Scoop Cyclone as well for the A-Spec of choice. Still feels like the best A-Spec in this deck. And then 2 Artisan and 9 of the Metal Energy to round out the deck. This deck's still really, really good. I still think it's going to be one of the top decks in the format. Has been performing pretty well in Japan. So the results are there. And I think the deck has a pretty good engine to still see success. I personally like both the Dunsparce and also the double engine. I most recently made a video on this deck. So, if you're interested in that, make sure to go check it out. I posted it pretty recently. So anyways, that is going to do it for this video today. Just kind of going over some decks that were really good in the pre-rotation format that have lost some cards and how personally I would build them moving forward. But anyways, that's going to do it for the video today. If you enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks so much for all the support. As always, really close to 10,000 subs. And yeah, I hope you find my content helpful. I'm excited for the brand new set also to release on TCG Live. We're going to be doing quite a few videos of, gameplay and stuff like that. So I'm excited for that as well. But anyways, thanks so much as always. This is Smart TCG. I'll speak with you guys again soon. Peace out.